Hello. Okay, just making sure this is going. So, I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about this because this is something that I think everybody deals with. So, excuse me if I look exhausted. I worked last night and I am just quickly fading. So, I wanted to get on here and talk about this before I was completely gone. But what I'm going to talk about a little bit is cravings. So, before I get into some tips for practically dealing with cravings, there's a couple things that I like to address when someone is struggling with cravings a lot. So, a really common reason, or a few common reasons, why people who are trying to lose weight specifically are struggling with cravings. So, one of the first ones in general, sometimes what happens is that people are not really eating enough throughout the day, especially in the earlier part of the day. And so they arrive to the end of the day and they are starving. Or they're just avoiding things that they think are quote or unquote bad, and so then they're kind of like binge eating them at the end of the day. So those two scenarios can happen sometimes when you're dealing a lot with cravings like this. If this is something you're constantly battling, and you're trying to lose weight, these are two of the things that you should really examine initially. Is are you not eating enough earlier in the day, or are you not eating enough in general if you're keeping track of what you're eating? But if you're really avoiding and eating much in the beginning of the day and you end up doing most of your caloric intake at the end of the day, that could be part of why you're dealing with cravings. Or if you're completely avoiding certain foods altogether, sweets or something like that, you're going to probably eventually binge them and you're most certainly going to crave them. So those are kind of two things to think about before you even try to implement any of these other practical tips. Is if you're dealing a lot with cravings, kind of try to examine that. So some practical ways to deal with cravings. Cravings happen all of the time. We kind of have to define that a little bit more. So like having, the thought that you want to eat something specifically, that's not always necessarily craving, and it's not always bad. So if it falls within what you plan on eating for the day, if you're doing something like tracking or something, and you have the room for it and you want to eat it, that's fine. And that I don't really define that as much as a craving per se. But if you're really struggling with wanting specific foods all of the time and stepping outside of what you want to do. So if you've told yourself for X, Y, and Z day, I've already had sweets yesterday, I already had X, Y, and Z thing, and I'm really trying to cut back on X, Y, and Z thing, and you're still struggling with constantly wanting it or sneaking it, doing it in a way that just doesn't feel right, then that's more so what I'm talking about here when I talk about cravings. So some specific ways to deal with that. Sorry, I have a few thoughts written over here. So I call them I try to, so that people can remember them, they all start with D, basically. So the first one to deal with some cravings is define it. This may sound really silly to say it out loud, but that can be helpful. So if you're struggling with it, literally saying out loud, this is just a craving. I'm just craving this food. Sometimes that sort of hands the power back to you so that you can say what it is, and move forward from there. So sometimes defining it, labeling it, this is a craving. The second D tip that I have is draw on your memory. So think about why are you in this whole process in the first place? Why are you trying to improve your health? Why are you trying to lose weight? What are you trying to accomplish in all of this? So if you're really struggling consistently with cravings of this sort, try and think back, draw on your memory, think back on why you're doing this in the first place. And I really hope that you've developed a vision that's strong enough. It's not just I want to fit into a pair of jeans. That kind of wellness vision that you want to be able to do this activity with your kids. You want to be an active person. You want to be able to do some activity that you haven't been able to do. That really powerful why that you have within yourself that you need to dig and define when you're on this journey. Trying to think back to that sometimes can help. The next D, distance yourself. So if this is consistently a problem that you have, you have certain snacks inside of your pantry that you're just having a really hard time with, distance yourself. So you can distance yourself by just not purchasing those things, or not purchasing them consistently, having it be a more irregular thing that you have inside of the house. And the other thing is just trying to walk away from that. So sometimes when these things happen, I like to try and help people when I work with women, help them kind of come up with an if this happens, I will do this. So in these scenarios, sometimes cravings can happen in the settings of, high stress or something crazy going on in the day, high emotion, things like that. So a very helpful thing to do, and this applies to more than cravings, but a very helpful thing to do is to basically create an if this happens or if I feel this way, then I will do this. So typically, if you're having an issue where it's like, if this happens, if this, if I have this stressful day, if I, have a hard time with my kids, then I sit down and, binge a box of Oreos. I always use that example. Then you need to replace that second part. So if I'm having this issue, then I will, and you come up with something different that you're going to consistently do. And I would define that specifically. Like it shouldn't just be like, if, I'm feeling stressed and I want to go eat that box of Oreos, I'm going to find something more productive to do. Like make it specific so that when that thing happens, you think, all right, I'm going to go do that. Whether that's go journal for 10 minutes, go for a walk, go, read a book, go do something with your kids. Like make that something very specific. So when that first thing happens, it's that trigger in your mind. You define the craving, you think about why you're doing this, and then you say, I'm feeling this, I should probably go do this. And sometimes that can really redirect, like if you're not hungry and you're not really have a real reason to be eating that's actually nutritional, that's sometimes a helpful process to walk through. And that can, you can apply that to multiple scenarios to try and redirect. It's not going to work every single time, but the more that you stick to that habit, the more that you will ingrain that into your life, and the quicker that you're going to be, all right, I'm going to go do that thing. So distancing yourself. On a similar track, distract. So they've studied this, the foods that are out and eye level, you are more likely to eat them than the things that you have to reach around and search for. So I would encourage you to try and put out healthier options that are more visible to you and put away some of the things that you don't really want to be eating a lot. But again, sort of related to what I just was talking about, distract yourself. So if you're starting to have this issue with said craving, and it usually happens before dinner time when you're starting to get hungry, then come up with an activity that you're going to do before dinner time consistently to try and remove that so that you can actually go and then eat your full nutritious dinner. And this also relates to making sure that you're eating full meals. So it's really unrealistic to expect yourself, if you haven't really eaten breakfast, you ate a very small lunch, and you are before dinner, it's going to be really hard for you to stick to this. So making sure that you're eating. So, and the last one really is, again, kind of goes with drinking something and, goes with distancing yourself and distracting, is drink something. So I think sometimes it's really easy to have like, at the end of the day, people sometimes really struggle at the end of the day. So try and find like a warm beverage, a tea or something that you enjoy that you would be able to do that replaces whatever other thing you're really struggling with. So these are small tips. They're little things that you can do to try and battle some of these things. Oftentimes there's roots to that you might have to deal with. If this is something you're battling all of the time, then there might be a bigger issue going on that you need to deal with. And this is why I love working with women. And if that's something that interests you, please reach out to have a call with me, and we can talk about ways that I can help you. But these are some really quick tips that you can try and implement and do them consistently, and hopefully they'll help you.